And a good Monday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald back with you as we get another week going. And a great way to start our week is with the way we ended our last week. And that is with the one and only Jeemes Akers on the line tonight, man. Great to see you. And good to have you on tonight. It's been a weird weekend again in the country with these No King protests. And we'll get your thoughts on that and a few other things. But good to see you tonight. How are you, sir?
I am doing fine, Chris. Always a pleasure being with you.
Always a pleasure having you as well, man. Hey, I do want to, before we get to the No Kings crap, and I'm not wanting to spend a lot of time on it, I think the media gave these people way too much coverage. It's just a bunch of hippies that didn't get their way in the 60s, and they're trying to get their way in 2025, and I don't even, on a scale of 1 to 10, think it's an importance on a 1, to be frank with you. But I do want to talk to you about something that's more important, and it's developing tonight that President Trump has basically declared, I consider it another war front, and that's Colombia. He has basically went after the cartels in Colombia with attacks and called out the Colombian president. You've got Venezuela on notice. And there's also, James, I want to ask you about this thing in Nigeria that's developing, these Christians that are being slaughtered. I think it's the most underreported story on the news media tonight. Nearly 7,000 Christians have been slaughtered just since January of this year. And it's a push tonight to basically label Nigeria a terrorist nation and a threat to our national security. I'll get your thoughts on all that. But live in a dangerous world, man, and I think it's getting more dangerous by the minute. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems like there's something going on every continent these days. Latin America was quiet for quite a while, and now it seems like President Trump's turning up the heat, not only on Nicaragua, but Colombia. Evidently this Colombian president has his hands in all sorts of stuff, and so the war of words between him and Trump, and you either admire him or say, you need to button it up just a little bit. But Trump, he just has no restraint when it comes to describing some of these foreign leaders, and he laid it on the Colombian president today.
Yes, he did, and I think that I'm just sort of reading between the tea leaves. I'm reading sort of the bigger picture things, and one of the things that Brett Baer pointed out tonight, I'm not a big fan of Fox, but Brett Baer, I think, and even Brett Hume made a great point that some of this, James, is strategic, and this sort of goes into your alley and Brad's, because usually when Brad comes on the show, we never get through a show without talking about China and her threat to America. And one of the things that they feel like this is about is that Trump is wanting to get the Chinese out of Latin America, out of Central America, out of South America, because one of the things that made Trump mad was the Colombian president has been signing some agreements behind the scenes with the Chinese, and this is Trump's way, I think, of sort of making sure the Chinese don't get a foothold there. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that has something to do with this? Because I know that Trump don't usually do these things without a bigger picture reason, and I think China may be that bigger picture reason.
Yeah, it all... we live in a world of sort of shadow wars and moves that are taken, especially by the President of the United States, is usually about 3 moves deep. There is a strategic undercurrent to just about any and everything these days, and China has been making major inroads into Latin America, and during the last administration, it was a porous border and a ton of military-aged men from China across the border, and I'm not sure anybody's keeping book on those individuals.
No, well, and to your point tonight, Mike Johnson was on Hannity, and he basically said that over the weekend they've arrested, I think it was 15 or 20 people that they believe that were in this country that had direct ties to the October 7th attack on Israel. I'm going to get to Israel in a minute because there's breaking news on that front tonight. But James, to your point, James, that should scare us all that there are people in this country that have come across that have brought these drugs, have brought this trafficking, and Trump. Look, and I agree with your sentiment. You can like him, hate him, believe he's talking too much or talking too little. I'm one that I'm okay with him talking tough with these dictators and talking tough to these presidents that are funneling this fentanyl and funneling these drugs to our country. It's about time somebody did. We had 4 years of sleepy Joe Biden. We had 8 years of Obama that placated these people, that gave them an open checkbook to screw America over. And I think most people find it refreshing that we got a president that's willing to say enough's enough. It may come across crash. It may come across as being a little over the top to some. I'm one of these. We Southerners, we can handle it. I mean, we can handle it because we talk the same way to people. We just do it with a glass of tea in our hands. Trump does it without the glass of tea. He just sticks it in your face and says, accept it or leave it, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I'm telling you, I believe that some of these people are already over here, and I'm with you. I think we don't have any clue. We don't have any clue what's across this border tonight and what we could be facing very shortly.
No, I agree, Chris. Absolutely. And, I know there are a lot of people who disagree on this, but I am glad we have a president that says we've had enough of these drug cartels pushing for profit, fentanyl and all of these other drugs into the country. I don't care what the source is. I don't care where the money comes from. I don't care how far back you have to trace the hand. But I'm glad Trump's at least taken some action against these people.
I'm with you. And, I think he blew another ship out of the water tonight, and that ship was traced to Colombia. And he's declaring war, James, on this, and I think he should. And going back to my question to you about Nigeria, do you believe that Nigeria situation is probably one of the most underreported things tonight because it's Christians and not Palestinians? Because there's a slaughter going on in Nigeria. There's genocide. And again, this is another one of those situations that I don't see one college campus going up in smoke. Tonight, I don't see one college campus riots happening. I don't see any signs free the Christians in Nigeria. I don't see any of that. But it is a genocide of genocides right now happening in Northern Africa, and I think the United States needs to get involved in it. What's your thoughts on that?
One of the great underreported stories around the globe, and certainly in Nigeria and Africa, is the slaughter of Christians that's taken place at the hand of Muslims, and especially in northern Nigeria. I have a good friend who is a pastor. He's Nigerian by birth, a marvelous Christian fella, and he goes and he has sort of an apostolic ministry with several churches in Nigeria, and his own brother was killed by a Muslim mob. So there are very real consequences. We tend to say in this country persecution is when somebody says something bad about you if you're a believer. There are Christians around this world that are being sawed in half in front of their children.
Exactly right, James.
It is just, in my view, a remarkable hubris of the Western countries to think that God is not going to, in some way, hold them accountable for turning a blind eye to what's going on to Christian brothers around the world.
Are we doing enough over there? Do you think we could do more?
I'm sure we could do more. All of that falls under, sort of a murky command structure in terms of military assistance. And in Nigeria, it's complicated. There was one intelligence outfit, a private intelligence firm, that had an estimate that by the turn of the century, the most populous country in the world would be Nigeria. And so, Nigeria doesn't even show up on our strategic priority map. And it's in terms of natural resources, we get a lot of oil out of Nigeria, and it's much easier to work with, and it's better quality oil than comes out of the Middle East, and it's been that way for a long time. And Nigeria is going to be one of those sleepy trouble spots that nobody pays attention to, and this is it's divided demographically. There is a very restive, very active, and very volatile Muslim population in a part of the country, and for a long time, there have been people I know in the office and in the building I used to work in, that there were several experts that kept their eye on what was going on in Nigeria. It is one of many crisp potential powder kegs around the world, and you're not going to see any reporting on it anywhere.
Very, very, very little. We've mentioned it here, but I will tell you this: it's isolated on X. I don't see many people doing it at all, and I sure hadn't heard anything from the mainstream media about it. And even social media, the X, I would call it the right wing social media posts, are not really saying a lot about it. There's some, but it's not a lot. Boko Haram is the group that comes to mind with this. Do we need to treat them like we do Hamas? I think that is a fair statement, that if we would treat Boko Haram like we should have back in the Obama days, we wouldn't be here at this point. A lot of this is Obama's doing. He basically propped him up, and it just seems like every time we turn around and we're dealing with an international crisis with Muslims, usually we can trace it back to our illustrious former president, who basically opened the door to all this crap with his turning a blind eye to what they were doing in the Middle East, and really emboldening them, James, when you get down to it, because that's what he did with ISIS.
Yeah, Boko Haram's been a group that's been problematic for in anti-terrorist circles for a long, long time. I remember several years ago when they took over a schoolhouse and took like 200 girls out of that schoolhouse, and
yes.
Caused a major incident. So there will be those types of things that'll flare up. They'll get the attention of some of the policymakers for a short period of time, and then it very quickly disappears to the back page. Usually hidden behind all of these other more glaring problems in the Middle East and otherwise. It's a difficult situation for the policymakers to address.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I want to go back to Israel a little bit tonight. We're going to get to the Aussies. Trump had the Aussie Prime Minister in the House today, and again, it was a strategic signing. We got an agreement out of Australia about the rare earth mineral situation, which again gets China not only out of Central America, but it gets China out of Australia, because China was making a bid for that. And but I want to go ahead.
Yeah, I was, I traveled with what I did extensively to Australia, And there was a period of time when virtually, when it comes to natural resources, especially in Western Australia, that China moved in big time and exerted control, a stranglehold over all of those materials. Now the primary game is strategic minerals and materials, and Australia is also a mother lode of some of those materials, and the Trump administration is trying to wrest that away from Chinese hands in exchange for the Australians want us to advance our nuclear submarines. They've purchased a couple nuclear submarines, and they want the production table moved up a little bit on those things. So that's sort of the quid pro quo that's going on here. But the main strategic point is that China now, for well over a decade, has a stranglehold on raw materials coming out of Australia. And we've been asleep at the watch.
Right.
And we've allowed all of this to happen, and now we're trying to turn back the clock and reverse some of these things that are now very well entrenched, and it's going to be a tough thing to do.
I couldn't have said that better, and I think that Trump took a step today to stopping that. Albanese is a pretty left-wing guy. We got our dear cherished friend Cleo down under. She tells me that Albanese is one of the worst prime ministers they've ever had, very anti-Semitic and some other things. But today, it seemed like he played nice with Trump to a degree, and hopefully, Trump got him to follow through with this on this agreement, because it will mean a lessening of that, what you just described that China's doing down there. Interesting stuff. The other big news this weekend I really, really want to talk to you about is the situation that happened in Israel, in Gaza. 2 IDF soldiers were killed. They have arrested 120 Hamas Palestinians that had broken through the barrier again just in the last 24 hours. Israel has began to halt the aid. They have started, it looks like, been given a green light by the United States that because Hamas is not playing ball, that they can go ahead and finish this. However, it's not how the media is reporting it. The media is reporting it that Israel is firing on Gazans again, and Israel is starving Gazans again. James, how do we deal with this? And is there any hope that Israel will get a fair shake in this? Because she is not the one that broke the ceasefire, as is being reported. Hamas did. I knew they would. But the media, when you've got such a demonic worldwide media and a worldwide press in America, and you've got voices in America that are salivating to criticize and judge Israel for anything, it makes it hard to defend your people from terrorists like Hamas, does it not?
No, it does. The only solution, and I'm loath to say this, but the only solution is to eradicate Hamas. Gaza is going to have no future whatsoever as long as Hamas can run around, round up Gazans, make a public display of them, and shoot them in the back of the head. At the same time, they're telling us they're going to honor a peace accord. It is just absolutely crazy what's going on there.
I'll agree.
You can rattle the sword and you can wag your finger, but until force is applied and this group is eliminated, you're going to be looking at this for the foreseeable future in Gaza.
All right, complicated question here. Trump was asked about it today. He was asked about this last week. And while he didn't come out and say this verbatim, some of his wording was taken to make people believe that, and the way he said it basically was, if Hamas don't disarm and play nice, he used that word today, play nice, that we are going to have to deal with this and have to deal with it violently. And when people heard that word we, they automatically assumed that that would involve American influence and involvement directly. Do you see any chance that we could be getting involved in this directly and helping Israel, or are we just going to give Bibi a little nod and say, do what you got to do, we'll cover for you in the world, we'll cover for you in the press, we'll cover for you, you're getting creamed again in public opinion, which he will. He's already getting creamed tonight again. But do we give Israel the nod to do this, or do we at some point, James, through all this, finally have to go over there and do something ourselves, even if it's special forces? Or is America en route to a confrontation in the Middle East with Hamas?
Well, I mean, Trump's walking a difficult tightrope here, right? So the only way you got to the phase one of the agreement was that he was able through Jared Kushner and Wickoff and a couple others to apply pressure to Turkey and the Kuwaitis, and to a lesser extent, way below the surface, the Saudis, and the Egyptians as well. And so, what the Americans would prefer, number one, is that Hamas would abide by its agreements. It's not going to do that. Option number two, which I think would be preferred by Trump and others in the White House, is for some sort of international settlement to go in, international force of Muslim countries in the region as well as Indonesia that could enforce a peace with maybe some sort of tutelage by a former British Prime Minister in the mix. That would be the second preference. I'm not sure that Hamas is going to even allow that scheme to get off the ground. And the third one is to give a blank check to Israel to go in and just clean their clock, and I think eventually that's the only option that's realistic. Yeah. Well, I do not think the public of the United States, the American president has a lot of discretion, can use a lot of power, can use special forces, can use intelligence special operatives. There are a lot of things that can be done, but if it is too overt, you will have in this country an absolute public uproar. And as bold as he is and as willing to stir the cauldron as he is, I'm not sure Trump's willing to go there.
Well, but to your point, let me ask you this, because the countries that you just mentioned, the Arab countries that would have to get involved in this, are they going to have the stomach to buck Iran and to buck Hamas? Because, James, when you get down to it, and this leads me to another question about the Abrahamic Accords, I'm not a big fan. I think that all of these accords and all these agreements are paper tigers. I think they're just delaying the inevitable of what's coming to the Middle East. Now, I'm not saying that I want to see all-out war in the Middle East. That is not what I'm saying, because I don't want that. But I also don't want Israel being stuck in some agreement that actually hurts her more than it protects her, just for the sake of somebody getting a selfie and claiming that peace has come to the Middle East. Because I hear a lot of that crap right now about this ceasefire, and this ceasefire has not brought peace to the Middle East. But do you think the Arab world would even have the stomach to go after one of their own, because technically Hamas is one of their own. Even though it's a more violent branch of Islam, it's still the same. It's still the same devil, buddy. It's just different fleas. Am I accurate in that?
Well, yeah, but there are several precedents for an international force of primarily Arab countries to patrol trouble spots in the region. Most notably in Lebanon, there was a multinational force, primarily Arab countries, that patrolled southern Lebanon with the idea that they would make Hezbollah live up to certain agreements on its side and Israel live up to certain agreements on this side. What happened over and over again, they turned a blind eye to what Hezbollah was doing and held Israel to the letter of the law. And that has been a pattern in the Middle East, whether you're talking about the border arrangement with the Egyptians and a multinational force on the southern border of Gaza. You know, you have to have the Saudis and the Jordanians, and now at least a token element of the Turks to play a role. And to your question, do these countries, the forces that they send in, which are generally very poorly trained to take up major peacekeeping roles of this sort, do they have the stomach to face down Hamas if it violates any ceasefire agreement? And the answer to that, based on historical precedent, not some notional idea of what should prevail, but historical precedent says that is a very poor track record to rely on.
I'm with you. No, and that's my point. That's what I'm saying, is that might not be the best thing to trust in. And then that leaves us with options 1 and option 3 with what you said a while ago. And I think what does Monty Hall say? Door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. And you know, if you pick the wrong door, you got nothing. You pick door number 2, you could get the grand prize. And I think the grand prize in this is letting Israel do her thing and take care of this. But it's just going to create these Israel haters in America to go crazy. You know, I'm already seeing tonight that they're still out there saying they control the American government and all this. Listen, I want to ask you this question. I don't know if you saw the interview that Wyckoff gave to 60 Minutes last night, and also Jared Kushner. I'm very concerned, James. I'm growing more and more concerned that our government, and I know that we're not an Israeli proxy, and I know that President Trump's got to be the president of America. But it seemed like every time that America gets involved in these land for peace deals and these peace initiatives in the Middle East, they always strong arm our friend and not strong arming the ones that are causing the most grief. And really, to be frank with you, the obstacle to peace. One of the disturbing things I heard Wyckoff say, and Jared even held a press conference, I think yesterday, and made the statement that he believed that there was no lasting peace unless they accommodate for the Palestinians. And my question to him is, well, are you literally saying that Israel has not done that? Because, James, they've divided up their country into 3 parts. You've got the Gaza to the south, you've got the West Bank and their back door, and Israel's land is getting less and less by the day. I think they've done everything to accommodate the Palestinians, short of giving them a state, which is not going to, I would never believe it's going to ever happen in my lifetime, because there's just too many reasons why Bibi Netanyahu won't let it happen, and I don't think the Israeli people will let it happen, and I don't think God's going to let it happen. But why is America even insinuating that to give the Palestinians more land and a state will cease them from doing what they've done? Because I want to remind our audience tonight, it wasn't just the Hamas terrorists that perpetrated acts of violence on Israel on October the 7th. It was the Gazan people. It was many in the Gazans. A lot of these hostages are saying they were held by first grade teachers. They were held by university professors. They were taken by ambulance drivers, medical professionals in Gaza to places where they basically held them to kidnap them until they were released. I don't have any sympathy for the Gazan people tonight, my friend. They were part of this. Many of them were part of this. Not everybody, but they were part of this. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree.
And let me get off my soapbox. I'll let you get on my soapbox and go my soapbox with me tonight. That's my soapbox for the night.
Yeah, scoot over there just a little bit. Let me climb up there. I still recall immediately after the massacre when Hamas made an open show of some of these hostages and these women and this, that, and the other, and the treatment that they received from the Gazans in the streets was absolutely reprehensible. And
yes,
and so they do bear, in my mind, they do bear some responsibility. That's one point to make. There's another point, Chris, that I've been thinking about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Trump achieved more than any previous administration has in trying to resolve this issue, but it came at a cost. He completely circumvented, really, the diplomats in the State Department, right?
right.
It was sort of personal diplomacy. It was Jared Kushner and Witkoff. Jared Kushner has extensive economic interest and is a major, I mean, absolutely major investor of Kuwaiti and the Saudi national funds, and so on the one hand, you can argue that gives him throw weight to move and exercise leverage in these countries that perhaps nobody else has. But on the other hand, you're starting to see sort of this back current of questioning about really what's the motive behind all of this, and so all of that is going on. And then the third thing, if we are talking about option 3 that I outlined before, which is give Israel a blank check and just let them go in and get rid of these Hamas troublemakers, I would argue there is no better time than at the present to do that.
I'll agree.
Israel has at least some backing within the international community. Like, they can go and say, listen, we tried. We absolutely tried. We released the hostages. We tried to abide by our side of the agreement. Hamas went, the first thing they did was execute Gazans.
They executed Gazans. Hey, that's the other genocide,
when our
Jim.
troops left.
Exactly.
When we left,
exactly.
The first thing they did was execute Gazans. And so there may be some sort of neutral ground now that gives Israel some sort of maneuvering room to say to the world, we tried. These people cannot be dealt with. The only way to deal with them is to eliminate them. And we have neutralized the threat to the north, Hezbollah. We have bloodied the nose of Iran. And we've taken out some of the Houthi leaders. You know, we have sort of neutralized what Tehran had designed as sort of a lynching ring around them of terrorist groups that was steadily tightening the rope around the Israeli neck. The Israelis have broken out of that. So it can be argued, and I think this argument has taken place in many of the Middle Eastern capitals, that Israel may view it as an optimal time to go in and do what they have to do.
I'm with you there, without a doubt. Did you? What was your? Do you believe? Let me rephrase the question. I'm getting tongue tied about to ask this. Did you feel like that Wyckoff and Kushner was throwing Israel under the bus a little bit in that interview last night, or do you think that's just them trying to play both sides of the middle, and not tick off the Arab equation in this and their Arab buddies to make sure that these Abrahamic Accords come into play? Again, I understand politics and I understand that, but why go on a program and sit down with Leslie Stahl, who is one of the most anti-Israel, anti-Semitic voices on CBS, and give her 60 minutes to basically just bait up softball questions to you to tear into the Netanyahu regime and the Netanyahu government and Israel, and then rehash the last 2 years how Israel's conducted this war. And instead of standing up for them, Wyckoff basically telling Leslie, well, President Trump was upset with this and he was upset with that, and we had put pressure on him after the Qatari incident, and Qatar's our buddies, and we're trying to get the Arabs to the table, and this and that and the other. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but again, the optics of that, to me personally, it did not sit well with me last night. I'm just curious how you feel about that personally. We're going to ask you one or two more questions and wrap this up. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that could we use more wisdom with that? And are you fully on board with Wyckoff and Jared's got Israel's best interest in this?
Well, no, I am absolutely confident they don't have Israel's best interests. The question is, whose interests do they have in mind?
Right.
Do they have America's interests in mind? Do they have? And I think more and more is going to come out about this. What part does their personal fortunes play with all of this?
Right.
And again, you could also argue, Chris, that they get swept away by this sort of false moral equivalency that we get caught up in when we talk about Israel. You know, if we're going to say something about Israel, we have to say something good about the other side, because we completely dismiss the notion of spiritual evil altogether, right?
Right.
And so to me, they're just playing into this whole sort of moral equivalence, which leads to double speak. You know, we can't say too much positive about Netanyahu. After all, he has his own domestic problems, and you know, and we can't give him complete freedom of action, because you know he could be a sort of a wild card that we can't control. And so that sort of leaches into to all of that thinking. I don't think they're at all comfortable with Netanyahu. I really don't. And then there's another, and this may be Jeemes Akers, and you may not want to hop on this soapbox. All of this could just be a charade, just a theater of the absurd.
I'll agree. No, I'm not going to disagree with that. I know where you're going with this. Keep going.
everybody is just sort of playing a game here that real intentions are never revealed. That nothing is as it seems, and that's my political maxim when it comes to foreign policy. Nothing is as it seems, and the whole Qatari bombing was set up for a political purpose. All of this is designed for a political purpose, and so what we may be looking at is what is very carefully fabricated for us to see, and to declare it as a truth when it is totally departed from the truth.
Right. I tend to believe that too. I'm not sure it's early enough to know where all this is leading. I will tell you this, James. I think we're in a precarious time bomb. I think that you said it earlier already tonight. We are sitting like the time bomb we're sitting on in Nigeria. I think we're sitting on a lot of time bombs tonight in the Middle East. We're sitting on a lot of time bombs in this country. We're sitting on a lot of time bombs in Central America. Trump's trying his best to put these time bombs out, and I respect him for it. But I think if we've ever prayed for our president for wisdom on how to handle these domestic and international affairs, we better be praying for him. I want to get your quick take on one thing. They found a hunting booth, a literal deer hunting shelter, whatever you call it. I'm not a hunter. Where the hunters get up and shoot.
A rifle stand.
A rifle stand. Thank you. I couldn't. My mind was trying to think of the word. They literally found a rifle stand this weekend in a place that wherever Trump got out of Air Force One, there would be an open shot to get to there. Is it fair to say that the people that tried to kill him in July of 23 are probably still, or 24, are still trying to kill him tonight? That he's still got a target, sadly, on his back, because the FBI needs to be having somebody behind prison bars for the rest of their life for doing that.
I am telling you that I'll go back to your point number one. We need to pray for this president, because there are forces 3 and 4 layers deep, very well funded, very well financed, that if they could figure out a way to do it, they would eliminate the president of the United States tomorrow, and it would all be blamed on a psychologically sick individual when it's all very carefully planned and scripted. That's my view.
Why are we not arresting people? I know that we got free speech in this country, but to make a threat against the president's life, is it not still a crime? And you've got actors like Robert De Niro. You've had several of these new No King protesters out there saying things like, we need to shoot up every ICE agent we can find. There was a picture of a man that had 8647 on his shirt. James, if this was done against Biden or done against Obama, they would have Secret Service agents camping outside your house in 15 minutes. And why are we so slow not to pull the trigger on these people? Because to me, if you make a threat, I don't care who you are, you go to jail for that. That's a felony offense. And part of this rhetoric is what's leading these crazies, these absolute insane, crazy individuals, to believe that that's normal behavior, that you go up and shoot up the president just because you don't like his policies. And he's not a king. I mean, he's not a king. But the media has convinced the country that he is, and these hippies that were out there shaming themselves and embarrassing themselves this weekend with the absolute insanity that they were trying to claim. And some of them, if you saw the interviews, any of them, they couldn't even tell you why they were protesting. But Trump's the king, he's evil, and he needs to die. That's what their 3-point reason they protested this weekend. And MSNBC lied claim there were millions. I do not believe there were millions that were doing this. It was just a few, maybe 100,000 people. But it was not this massive surge of unhappiness about President Trump. I would argue that most of the country, 65% of the country tonight, is fully on board with what he's doing. I know I am. I'll let you wrap us up on this.
No, what I saw mostly, like you say, former hippies looking for a cause, looking for a reason to hold up a sign, that are totally detached from reality, that would go directly from the protests to their gated communities where they're totally isolated from the world and have the luxury of engaging in this sort of foolishness, which is an indictment on our system and our educational system as well. So the press reports that sort of foolishness that happens in the day, designed to play out in front of cameras, designed to create a narrative in this country. Meanwhile, at night, we have thugs and ruffians and just all sorts of lawlessness that is taking place in the major parts of some of our major cities, and not a word is said about it in the press.
I'll agree. Well, and James, and to your point, and I'll wrap it up on this, the Ninth Circuit Appeals Court tonight basically gave Trump a heads up. Now, they're still blocking him from Chicago, but if I'm the Portland Antifa gang and the ICE haters and the ICE assaulters, you better pucker up, because there's a Trump train coming to Portland, and Trump's not going to play around with this mess. And these punk kids are going to hear very soon that there's a new sheriff in town, and this lawlessness is not going to be tolerated much longer. And Portland is about to get a dose of the Trump reality, because, and I agree with it 1,000,000%. Look, I don't want federal troops in our cities, but James, at this point, they have forced their hand. They forced his hand. I don't think we got any choice, and I'll let you wrap that up, and we'll talk about that maybe more on another time. But I don't see how he's been left with any choice to do than what he's doing with Portland and Chicago. Don't hold your breath. The courts are going to tell Trump he's got permission to come do to your city too what he's about to do to Portland. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, there's been a sort of an interesting shift, Chris. I heard, I guess it was on the 5, they were talking about this, about the San Francisco mayor, sort of a Democrat, saying enough is enough, and trying to clean up the streets, and take the street people off of the streets, and
right,
clean up crime and this, that, and the other. And I think there is a shift coming, and all of these very well-funded provocateurs that love lawlessness and have created sort of a designed mischief in some of these large cities. I think the things may be turning against them, and I think these court decisions sort of represent that. But again, that case has to go to the Supreme Court. You had a Court of Appeals decide that it was okay for Trump to use federal troops to protect federal facilities in Portland, but it was two Trump appointees, and it was a split decision, 2-1, and so all of these matters, whether Trump, I heard him talk to some journalist and said, over half of the American presidents have at one time or another during their presidency used the Insurrection Act to address, domestic violence that the local law enforcement authorities were not able to address. And so he says, I am loath to take that step. I don't want to go there. But he said, I do have the authority to do it. And so, all of these things, we have become such a society that leaves all of these very, very difficult decisions, because we're so split as a country down the middle, that leaves all these very tough decisions, tough social, cultural, and security calls to courts, and the judges are not equipped to deal with it, plain and simply, and that's, as we have talked about many times before. That was when Israel, if you talk about the Bible, when Israel went into steep decline, it was because the judges became so corrupt.
That's very true.
And we are seeing just massive. We're seeing the result in law schools of this leftist ideology that has infiltrated the judiciary branch of our government, and it will take decades to root all of that out.
I'm with you, buddy. Buddy, it's been a pleasure talking to you again tonight. And, man, I wish we could keep you on another hour. It's been good stuff. I'm sure we'll be talking to you next week, but it's a good way to get our week started off on this great week of shows coming up. And I appreciate you being with me tonight, and our prayers for you. Hope to see you again soon, man. And God bless, friend. Thank you for being with me tonight.
Sounds good, Chris. It's always an honor, and and for your audience, all of these things sound so troublesome, and will become more troublesome as we approach the end. So you need to get your spiritual house in order.
Absolutely, buddy. Have a good night, my friend. Good stuff tonight, as always. Be blessed.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Always an honor.
Jeemes Akers, everybody. Put some fire in that house. We're grateful for him answering the call tonight. We're going to take your questions. I've got videos I'm going to play. If you enjoy James, let him know by giving him a heads up, and fire in the house like we always do our guests that you enjoy. It's been good stuff. A couple of questions. Anyway, Nancy, I think most people are praying for President Trump, and I think that nobody has stopped doing that. And Mary Ann, your question is, why aren't they arresting these people? That question to me is one that needs to be answered. And I am very perturbed at how the left can do these threats and say these things. This person that made this rifle stand, the FBI needs to find out who did that. And that person, that is, to me, a direct threat of safety to the President of the United States, without a doubt. And I heard some of the most vile stuff over the weekend coming out of the mouth of these protesters. And again, they're nothing but a bunch of meth-induced hippies that probably didn't get their way when they were kids and needed their butts whipped, and they never grew up from the rebellion of the 1960s, which really, a lot of this that I saw, a lot of these people were very older people. There were some definitely young kids in this, but a lot of this looked like a Geritol factory, and it looked like a Geritol convention. Again, to ask any of them, why are you doing this, they couldn't tell you. But some of the people went further than that. They didn't care whether what they were doing was protesting. They didn't know what they were protesting. But the one thing they did want to see is President Trump dead. And none of us on the right, and we shouldn't do it. I'm not advocating we do it. But if those things that I heard this weekend were said or would have been said about Joe Biden, which would have been wrong, or Barack Obama, which would have been wrong, or any Democratic leader, which would have been wrong, we'd be in jail. We'd be in jail. And we'd be in jail quickly. We'd be in jail quickly. So that's a good question. Why aren't people being arrested for it? I don't know. Roger, you saying there's a shadow government in America? I would say that I'm not going to say there's a shadow government. You say it's going to bring it on the brink of collapse. I think that's why President Trump is working so hard to bring down this network of, there's so many names for it: shadow government, cabal, the elites, whatever. I tend to be very careful, Roger, of saying anything like that, and I tell you why. Because this Q movement that sort of hit the presses back in 2018, 2019, and got us spooked out of our minds. I'm not saying there's not some evil people out there that want to bring this world down, and I'm not saying there ain't networks of people that want to do it. I'm not even saying that there ain't networks in this country that don't want to do it. But we got a president that I think is doing a good job of trying to withstand it, and he recognizes the danger. I would be more concerned about your question if we had a left-wing government in place. I think Trump is in great danger against these forces. They do not want him alive, and it's a given. But their fundamental wish for him not being alive is still out there tonight. It's still out there tonight. 10 minutes or so. We're gonna basically play our video. We got Michael Jaffe coming tomorrow night. It's a pre-recorded interview. I was going to play it tonight, and I thought about it. I said, no, I'm going to just come on here, get with Jeemes, talk about the weekend's news. Michael Jaffe is going to hit a grand slam. He is going to say a lot of things I've been wanting to say about the Israeli situation, but he is going to say it for me. And we had the best interview. We interviewed him Friday morning, and I've got it saved for the queue tomorrow night. And you don't want to miss this interview to be late, but it will be some good stuff. It will be some good stuff. Roger, you say every arrest this administration makes gives the Democrats and the media an excuse to label Trump a dictator. Roger, I got two words for that, and it's the same words that the White House had today for the No Kings protest, which is, who cares? Who cares? I don't care what they label him. I don't care what they say about him. Trump don't care. I can tell you Trump don't care. And thank God he don't. If Trump cared about public opinion, he wouldn't be going after those cartels. He wouldn't be telling Hamas, we're going to basically wipe you off the face of the freaking earth. He wouldn't be telling China, I'm going to tariff you to 158% right now. We got tariffs on China going into effect in 2 weeks of 158%. We're going to tariff China back to the egg roll world, the great egg roll heaven in the sky. You won't even be able to buy an egg roll in this country without needing a banker after we're done. Trump is manhandling the Democrats. This shutdown is going to go back on them. He's not going to budge. He's not going to give them their $1.5 trillion payday to finance illegals, to finance trans studies, to put a bunch of woke programs back into place. He swacked $20 million program of Chuck Schumer's that was a 100% Democrat program that was being funded. And Trump said, I tell you what, you shut the government down, we ain't got to fund it. And he didn't. If Trump cared about public opinion, like past presidents have done, he wouldn't do stuff like that. That's why I love President Trump. Because if Chris was president, I'd be the same way. Because he's never going to win over public opinion. And I would extend this to Bibi Netanyahu tonight. If I'm Bibi Netanyahu, I would tell the world, I would tell the United States even, and the UN, at least forces in this country, that think that he's doing such a bad job. And by the way, our poll question tonight, I didn't word it just right. Has Israel handled this war and her response in the right way in 2 years? And we've got a very large percentage that says yes, she has. I'll just go back and see if we've had any no votes. Well, we've had 3%, 97 to 3 out of 29 people. I'm just curious, unless you're just being a jerk and you want to say something just to make the poll number not be 100%. If you're out there and you don't believe Israel's handled it right, speak up and be a man and tell me why. And I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. McFilesforum@gmail.com. Don't be a coward and say they haven't and hide behind some fake name on the internet so you won't be known. At least be brave about it and put your name on it. But Roger, to your question, Trump don't care. He basically said that tonight. I got one, not a video, but I got one meme I got to show you, and I think this sums it up as great as you could say it. He said this. He posted this on True Social today. Posted it this morning. He said, "A huge thank you to all the No Kings protesters yesterday. I was very concerned that a king was actually trying to take my place, but thanks to your tireless efforts, I am still your president. Good job. Good job." So that tells me what I've always known about Trump. He don't care, Roger. Roger, you're a fine friend in this show. I wouldn't care either. It don't matter what they call him. It don't matter what they call him. It don't make me lose any sleep, and it shouldn't make you either, buddy. It wouldn't make me either. Girl for Jesus, you say Albanese is no friend of Trump. I'll agree with that. And I think Cleotis would agree with that. Albanese is no friend of anybody's. He has been one of the leaders that's called for a Palestinian state. He has basically taken Australia as close to a leftist, fascist government as any prime minister has done in a mighty long time. A lot of this is the repercussions of Morrison that preceded him. He was a conservative. Morrison was supposed to be a conservative. And because of the COVID handling and the mishandling by Morrison of the country and basically shutting the country down like a freaking concentration camp, it just caused the right to revolt, and they just didn't go out and vote. And now you've got this left-wing government that's just bringing the country further into an abyss of hell. And I hate it because I love you Australians. I love you Aussies. I really do. And y'all are part of our nation. I mean, y'all are precious people down there. And, Aussies just don't fight. That's not their makeup, their DNA. They're very passive people, not so much in their personalities, but they're not the kind of group that's going to rise up and do anything about this. And that's why the Christian voice in Australia needs to speak out. These pastors need to speak out, but they're not doing it. And I'm not saying that as an expert on Australia. I'm not. I'm just getting that from sources and people and just watching from afar. But I will tell you this. You're right. I was shocked. Actually quite shocked today that Albanese signed that agreement with him about the rare earth minerals. I was. Because I didn't see that. I figured that he would sell out to China. But he stood firm today. And it's about an $800 billion deal, I think. $8 billion. It's a lot of money coming into our treasury from the Aussies. And it's a fair deal for them too. They get something out of it. So I'm with you. I'm not saying I disagree with that. Girl for Jesus, you are an Aussie. And she agrees with me. She said, I am an Aussie and we're laid back and easy go. And that's what I've heard. Yes, and he has made Australia a goat nation. Girl for Jesus, he has. He has exactly done just that. Prism says, thank God for putting Trump into office to deal with those traitors. Well, we'll see if he does. Prism, I hope he does. Roger says, Israel has fought the war in Gaza about the only way it could be done. I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that, Roger. I believe they have. I do. I truly do. Um, Marianne, you said should never given up their guns. Marianne, that's right. You know, that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people know about Australia, and it's a great point. And I think it was Morrison. I'll have to ask Cleo about this, but I think Morrison was pushing that too. That was another thing that blew people away. He was a conservative, and it may have been before Morrison. It may have been the one before him, but there was a push for the gun grab right before the nation took a turn to the left. I remember hearing about that, and I don't want to say for sure because I don't want to get my facts messed up, but the gun grab in Australia sort of started taking the country down that road. You're right. And they should have never given them up. They should have never given them up. Because once you start giving one freedom up, the government will take about 6. You stop fighting for one right you've got, they're going to take 6 others. And I think that's a well said point. That is a well said point. Any other questions? Good stuff tonight. After the Port Arthur massacre, thank you, Girl for Jesus. That is true. I remember that. 94-6 now. We got 33 votes. 94% of you say Israel has conducted the war. If you're out there tonight, tell me what Israel's done that you believe has not been right in response to the October the 7th attack. I'm waiting with bated breath. I'm all ears. I'm all ears. It's amazing how anti-Semitism is not just ugly and vile, it's cowardly. It's cowardly. It is nothing but a bunch of spiritual cowards that do this stuff. And I don't mind saying it. I don't mind saying it. Folks, there is nothing, and Israel is being proven right tonight. Even tonight, they arrested 120 Hamas terrorists that went in after all of this that's happened. Just in the last week, they took pliers and they cut down the wall again that separated the Jewish state, the Jewish settlers in the kibbutzes down in the southwest part of the country, and the Gaza Strip, which is separated by. They broke through the wall tonight, and thank God, because of everything going on, that there's greater security down there tonight, that Israel arrested him. I wonder what those 120 were planning to do, busting over a gate. I wonder if they were just going to go for a stroll in southern Israel tonight and get a Coke somewhere and sit down and have a party with the Israelis. No. They were there to do harm. And then people will blame Israel. The media is lying tonight, folks. I want to go on the record and tell you tonight, the media is lying. Israel did not break this ceasefire. Hamas did. Hamas did. They killed 2 IDF soldiers. But the media? Israel resumes its war in Gaza. Israel wasn't the one that started the war in Gaza. Hamas was. I don't know what part of that we don't get. I don't know what part we need to draw and crown. That same group that believes that crap will tell you there's no genocide going on in Nigeria. They're the same group that's absolutely quiet and silent in the face of Christians being slaughtered like lambs in Nigeria tonight. So, you 6% out there, I'm speaking to you. Tell me why. You're welcome to McFilesForum@gmail.com. Don't be a coward. Tell me why you think Israel has not executed the war properly. I will make you a deal. I will not read your name, but I will read your response on the air and give you your platform to tell me exactly what you feel. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. Yep, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. 92-8 out of 36 voices. Marianne says, I wish Bibi had eradicated them after October 7th attack. Mary, I think ultimately that is going to be proven to be one of his biggest mistakes in this, that he didn't eradicate them. I think that And I will say this in his defense, he was hand-tied by the Biden administration the first year of this because he tried to do that. And when Trump came in, it went on another year, and I think that the bloodshed and I heard that Charlie Kirk told him that he was losing the PR battle. I wouldn't have given two bit blanking pins about losing the PR battle. It's the same people out there saying that Trump needs to be worried about these no king hippie protests. I don't think he cares. That's why wars are lost. That's why people get killed when politicians start waging war based on public opinion. I'm sorry, you got an enemy, wipe them off the planet. My brother said this, and I got to quit. It's 12:45. I'm going to pick this up tomorrow night with Michael Jaffe. God told Edom in Obadiah, he said, you sit there and watched your brother get slaughtered by the Babylonians, and you stood by and you mocked. You mocked. You made fun of them. You wouldn't lift a finger to help them. And you not only didn't lift a finger to help them, but you entered into their sufferings. You helped the Babylonians do to them what they did. Albeit God had allowed this, but he did not allow Nebuchadnezzar to be cruel and to do any more than what God ordained him to do, and that was bring them into captivity. But they took it beyond that. They wanted to destroy Jerusalem, and they started doing things to God's holy temple items and God's chosen people that was not in God's desire. Well, Edom sit by, who was Israel's ardent enemy. It's the same spirit that's in these Hamas terrorists, this violence group. And there's a lot of Americans tonight, a lot of cowardly Americans that are siding with Hamas in this. That's all right. You do what you got to do. But let me remind you what happened to Edom. Let me remind you what God told Edom. He told Edom, I'm going to wipe your name from under heaven. There ain't too many people in the scriptures that God tells that to. He had told Moses that he was going to do it to Amalek and that lineage and that line of hatred toward Israel goes all the way through Esau. It goes all the way through Ishmael. It went all the way to Edom. And God told Edom the same thing he told Amalek. He said, I am going to wipe your name off the face of this earth. If I'm Bibi Netanyahu tonight, I pray for the Hamas people's souls. I do, folks. I really do. And I'm not saying that just to say it. I do. Told my wife that tonight. We were watching a mini-series called Red Alert. I encourage you to watch it. It's a dramatization of 4 families that went through October the 7th. It's powerful. Sad. I was crying at the end. I told her, I said, we need to pray for the Hamas terrorist souls. We do. And then I looked at her and I said, but every single one of these animals and these butchers and these murderers and these rapists and these baby killers need to be eradicated off this earth. And I stand by that tonight. I stand by that tonight. And I'll let you go from there. 93% to 7. Israel's conducted the Gaza war right out of 40 votes. We're going to say that again. Carol, Israel can never let their guard down, my friend. They sure can't. They sure can't. And I was hoping that poll would come up and show you. There we go. 92 to 8. 40 votes. So 92% of you said yes, Israel has. I give the 8% a chance. You're always saying we don't give you a chance on this network to speak. 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 McFiles @gmail.com. I'm just waiting with bated breath to hear your response as to why you think Israel didn't conduct itself. Now, if you're just being a jackanapes out there tonight to make our poll go down, then, that's fine if you want to act like that. But if you've got a serious mind and you're of a sober mind and you want to discuss this, I'm willing to talk with you about it. Because I really want to know what you believe Israel could have done any differently than what she did in response to this. Please explain it to me. Please explain it to me. All right. Chris is in a late night mood, and I better stop because I can feel the temperature. And this is not the time of the night for that to happen. It's time for me to go to sleep. Now I'll be back with you here in the morning on a Bible study. And tomorrow night, Michael Jaffe, you're going to love this interview. And we're going to play the videos tomorrow night that we're going to play tonight because it's late. It is late. And may the Lord bless you. I do want to play one, if you don't mind. This is a guy from Germany, folks. If you don't think the world is turning on Israel, watch this.
Jewish schools here in Munich, Germany, must release their students at different time periods throughout the day for their safety. And when they release these students to walk home from school or to get on the bus, the tram, what have you, they are accompanied by armed police officers so they don't get attacked by people who don't like the Jewish community here in Germany in 2025. That's unbelievable. Germany's been through one hell of a ride, but in today's world, for these students to still have to be released from school at different time periods so that nobody knows when exactly they're being released, alongside being accompanied with armed police officers, is crazy and sad. When I heard that on the tour, 2.5 hour tour of the history of Munich and Hitler, of course, and World War II, broke my heart for these students. My goodness gracious.
And it should be concerning to all of us here in America, folks. CJ, your question, we've already talked about that with James tonight. There was a Hamas terrorist cell found that was responsible for October the 7th in Louisiana this weekend, and we've talked about that. We'll talk about it more tomorrow night. Do I think we've upped our defense? I think we better. We'll discuss that tomorrow night, but we're aware of it, and we're following that story. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. God bless the wonderful nation of Israel. And our prayers and our thoughts to these Christians in Nigeria tonight that are facing absolute extinction. They are facing slaughters in numbers unprecedented, even for North Africa's tribal conflicts. This is a direct assault on Christians and the Christian community, and we need to pray against this spirit of hatred and murder against the children of God there in that wonderful nation of Nigeria. It is a dark continent. It's a dark nation, and we need to pray for the Christians, and we need to pray for all that name the name of Jesus. And yes, we need to pray for the Jewish people tonight, for their safety as well, and the nation of Israel. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you back here in the morning. May you have a good night. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Good to see everybody. It is a late night Monday. We're grateful to be with you. Have a good night, everybody. See you tomorrow. Michael Jaffe tomorrow.